So welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Howard Koh, a professor of the practice here at the Harvard Chan School of Public Health, and it's my great pleasure to be the host for today's event, Public Health and the Arts. And it's a great honor to interview my colleague and friend Diane Paulus, who's the Terrie and Bradley Bloom Artistic Director of Harvard's American Repertory Theater, A.R.T. Diane is an incredibly talented person. She is also a professor of the practice here at Harvard University. She's a nationally acclaimed leader in theater and the arts. She's won many awards, like the Tony Award. She was named as one of the top 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine, and the list goes on and on. So big round of applause for Diane Paulus. So Diane, it's so great to have you here. You're at the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. And when people think about the term public health, very few people would make any connection to the arts. But you feel very passionately about that connection. So to start, let's talk about that connection and how you make it come alive every day.
Of course. First of all, I have to say, I am so deeply honored to be here with you, Howard. I've just been inspired by you and your work, and I'm in awe of all the faculty and staff and students who are in service to public health. I think coming out of the pandemic, public health has become a household word. It should have been so beforehand. And in many ways, I feel that is part of my impulse to attach the arts to public health, to not separate our sectors. And when I think about my life in art, I've thought about what is art in service of. And it's in service for me of bringing people together for a collective experience where we look at our humanity. And we dare to be vulnerable. We dare to hear stories that are not our own. We practice our muscles of empathy. And I do believe you need to practice them. Right. You know, and I think sometimes theater, that's the particular art form that I've devoted my life to, can get a rap of it's frivolous, it's entertainment, it's what you do when you want to sort of, you know, take a break. And all those things are true, because I think diversion is a human need, right? We want to divert from our kind of regular life, but we also have human needs for ritual, and we have human needs to learn, and we have human needs to feel ourselves in the presence of something larger than ourselves. And for me, these are all the things that theater can do. So I just hope we at A.R.T., as the professional theater at Harvard University, can find a unique purpose on this campus, not to just create shows, but to connect to public health in many ways. Stories, narrative, our programming, destigmatizing and humanizing public health issues.
So what a powerful way to start this event. And so, Diane, you know that in public health, we pride ourselves in doing studies that involve lots of data and tackling population health. That's critically important, of course. It's vital to science. It's vital to advancing knowledge. But you complement that approach by focusing on individual people through storytelling. And then you make these issues come alive and more human, as you just said. So tell us more about that.
I think we need narrative to connect. I think especially now we're inundated with sound bites, news stories, news flashes, you know, Twitter feed, and there's something about the theater when you go to a show and you can't turn it off, right? And you have to actually listen, and you go through a longitudinal time frame of connection. And that is that offers nuance, which I think we're living through a time where there isn't nuance, right? And we're so quick to reduce things and put them in kind of a 2-second soundbite. And actually what we do in the theater is we try to complexify things. We try to look at what is messy, because life is messy and humanity is messy. And we can look at it actually with great empathy and compassion. And again, the art of the theater is to do it collectively, which I think we also need right now, right? We can't be alone because it's too overwhelming. So what does it mean to come together, literally sit side by side, and in the transmission in the theater between the actor and the audience, find some kind of physical vibrational connection, which is very primal to what it means to be alive and feel our heartbeats and, you know, feel our minds engaged and feel our blood pumping in our bodies. I mean, for me, the theater is physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. And I always think about, you know, the definition of health being not just about medicine. It's about a holistic sense of health, right? Social.
Complete well-being.
Complete well-being, exactly. So I think about the theater that same way. And that's why I went into the theater, because I thought there's no other, for me, there's no other form that challenged me on all those cylinders, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, physically.
Beautiful. So Diane, in your remarkable career, you've given birth to so many productions as a writer, as a director, as a producer. We're going to focus today on 3 of them, all musicals, right?
All musicals.
Okay. And we're going to show a clip for each of 3 musicals that we're going to be discussing. So the first one is Waitress, that started at A.R.T. and it's now on a global stage. We're going to hear more about that in just a second. If you don't know about Waitress, it's a very powerful story about a woman who is involved in a deeply unhappy marriage. She's trying to escape intimate partner violence. She's trying to reclaim self-love. We have about a 3-minute clip to show as we start talking about Waitress. So can we play the clip right now?
Why are you hiding money all over the house?
I want to.
No, just tell me you were gonna surprise me.
Earl.
Tell me you were gonna buy me a present, because if I ever thought that you weren't happy being my wife, that you were deceiving me, I would want to kill myself. I would want to die. Baby, please hold me.
The truth is, Earl, the truth is, I was saving them money for the baby. To buy some nice things. Crib and toys. It was all for the baby.
It was for the baby.
Yes. Earl, for a crib.
I don't know why you have to make it so hard, Jenna. I just want us to be happy.
You're not what I asked for. If I'm honest, I know I would give it all back for a chance to start over, rewrite
Yes.
Yeah, you
Wow.
can clap, please clap. Yeah. So Diane, tell us more about
Yes.
Waitress,
Oh,
how it
my
began,
goodness.
how you took it to a global stage, and tell us more about how theater can create a space for a conversation about difficult topics.
For sure. So first of all, the incredible Sarah Bareilles, who was the composer and lyricist of the show, that was her performing the role. And that was a live capture of our Broadway production when we came back after the pandemic. And by the way, for folks who want to see more of it, it's available to stream now, which is incredible on Max and Amazon Prime. You can see it. And in terms of the global impact, I just returned from being in Mexico City, where I saw our first ever Spanish language production of Waitress, which was remarkable to be sitting in the theater and see the show with an entirely Spanish Mexican cast, singing the songs, doing all the lines. It was a replica of our Broadway production, just all in Spanish. And currently, right now, we're in rehearsal in Japan for Japanese full translated production of Waitress. It's the second time in Japan. So I think sometimes we don't realize that theater can actually have impact. It can, when we talk about public health and scale and how how art can actually continue to resonate and have a life. So I think with Waitress, what touches me so deeply about that show is that domestic violence is such a prevalent issue in our society, and yet it's so stigmatized. We don't talk about it. And the idea of addressing a subject like that through a musical, right? It's sort of like public health and art. It's not what you think can happen, but what I found over the years of working on Waitress, it allows people an avenue in, right? You come to the theater, you're seeing a musical, you're laughing, you're connecting, and then all of a sudden you look at that stage and you say, I recognize this. I recognize myself. I recognize that's my friend's story, that's my sister's story, that's someone I know. I need to bring someone to see this. And it's a way in, I think, where you see that character that Sarah was portraying, Jenna, a working class waitress who is messy but kind, and almost too kind, right? She can't get herself out of that relationship, and that clip is such a great moment because her husband, who has been abusive to her, is pulling sort of the one of the most manipulative moments in intimate partner violence, right? Threatening to kill themselves. That psychological manipulation, and she just can't bear to say the truth to him. She's been hiding money to kind of get away, and Gloria Steinem famously says that the most dangerous moment in a domestic violent relationship is the moment when you're about to be free. That's when it clamps down. And so there she is. She's hidden money all over the house to get herself to a pie contest, because maybe if she can win that pie contest, she can get enough money to get out of this relationship. And he discovers the money, and you see how he pockets it at the end. But again, what I love about the form of musical theater, it's cathartic, right? What happens to Jenna? She opens her mouth and she sings. And I always tell every actress that plays that role, it's the moment of hitting rock bottom, which is that scene where all of a sudden you look yourself in the mirror and there's recognition. And when you see that moment of recognition, you're actually able to then change your life. And so she sings this song, and you just heard, Sarah hold that big note, and I said, that's the emotional release. And you know what I love, which you didn't see, is at the end of that song, she starts to feel contractions in her belly. She's pregnant. Wow. And the whole story of Waitress, she has not wanted the baby, right? She's keeping the baby. She doesn't judge that choice, but she's keeping the baby. But it's after that symbolic moment of recognition and releasing the catharsis of saying she is gone. She's speaking in the third person about herself, but she used to be mine. It's actually, she sees herself, and then this new life kind of knocks on her in her belly and says, I'm coming. And that's sort of the beginning of kind of her change at the end of the show. So it's story, right? It's story and laughter and music. I think, I know you're a singer. Music, people don't know this about Howard, but he's a singer. Music gets you. Music gets you. It gets you in places that you can't think about. It gets you right direct into the heart.
What an incredible set of comments here, Diane. Oh, we can have you for many, many hours on just Waitress alone. But we will move on to the second musical, Jagged Little Pill, another incredibly impactful show that you directed at A.R.T. So this one, if you don't know, is a story about a mother who becomes addicted to painkillers. So we have about a minute and a half on this. So if we can play the second tape.
Addiction is such a difficult, tragic and delicate subject to talk about. We often are at a loss of words to describe it, and often we could, through movement and through the body, find ways to speak about the unspeakable. Drawing from my own personal experience as well as from those of dancer Heather Lang and the incredible singer-actress Elizabeth Stanley, we looked into ourselves, finding the stillness, the tension, the knots, the attraction and the repulsion needed for this unconventional pas de deux. Facing yourself is truly the scariest thing. We all have to face and handle ourselves at every moment of our lives. Body, mind and heart are inextricably linked.
Like anyone would be, I am disturbed by my fascination with you. Like any flesh and blood human, I have simply found an object to crave. But you're not allowed. You're uninvited, and unfortunately, it's late.
Well, that is so powerful, too. It's frustrating to stop in the middle of that, right? But you can watch the rest of that online.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That clip. Just search "Uninvited Jagged Little Pill" YouTube. You can watch the whole song.
Incredibly powerful. So we all know that the country has been going through this opioid epidemic for quite a while. The recent news on deaths are positive. It's going, the deaths are dropping just in the last year or two, but we need to see much further decline because the challenge of addiction is so powerful. And we know that people with substance use disorders feel stigmatized and so therefore are reluctant to seek care too many times. So Diane, what you do is you try to smash the stigma. You try to humanize these situations. You try to promote compassion. So tell us more about that as it relates to Jagged Little Pill.
Yes, well, of course, I have to talk about Alanis Morissette. Of course, Jagged Little Pill is Alanis' great album. And the opportunity to meet Alanis and have her speak about what matters to her as a singer and artist. She is completely devoted to the idea of healing from trauma. And what she talked about, which again related so much to the theater, was that I remember she used to always say, we can't heal in isolation. That for her, healing is relational. And so this story looks at a family, mother who actually, the secret cause in many ways of this addiction to her painkillers, we learn in the show, is from an episode of sexual violence when she was in college. So this many years later kind of buried trauma, she numbs herself from a car accident, becomes addicted to her painkillers, and of course is hiding from herself, hiding from her family, and we see the tensions that are kind of pulling the family apart. That was Sidi Larbi-Chikawi, our brilliant choreographer, and I'll never forget that rehearsal. I mean, Uninvited is an existing song. It's kind of a jukebox musical, Jagged Little Pill, but the idea of Uninvited being reframed to be about addiction, that addiction is what is uninvited. And I'll never forget that rehearsal when our choreographer, we call him Larbi, we stayed after hours, and it was Heather Lang, the dancer, and Elizabeth Stanley, and a little clip light on the floor in the studio. and just experimented with this idea of a doppelganger. Like, what if you experience yourself outside yourself? And that became this duet, which I think was one of the most powerful moments in the show. Very, very visceral, and I think the embodiment of something that you're attracted to, but you're saying is uninvited, and you're fighting with, was a theatrical, metaphorical way to look at addiction. Again, right? How do we get off facts and figures and sound bites and kind of the nightmare kind of horror story outcomes, and look at what it feels like. And I do have to say, all of these shows, we did in deep partnership with colleagues here at Harvard, and a really important colleague to us on Jagged Little Pill was Dr. Peter Grinspoon, who's affiliated with Harvard Medical School. And his own experience that he's very public about as a doctor going through an addiction of fentanyl, it was so vulnerable of him, to surface that. As you say, we don't talk about it, let alone a doctor talking about it. But guess what? Doctors do have this because they have extreme access to prescriptions. And he was so generous. He came and spoke with us. He spoke with Elizabeth Stanley and described to her what the symptoms would feel like. And every time we put a different actress in, I'd say, we have to go call Peter, and he would get on the phone with these actors and speak to them. So our job as artists is to take a subject and deal with it with integrity and research in our own way, and then, of course, which I have to say is what we do, we use our imaginations, and I think the imagination is important in our times. We have to dig deep into our humanity and our lived experience, and because the imagination will lead to transformation and change, and also connection.
The challenge of overcoming stigma, smashing stigma, building empathy, especially important in times like this, right? Say a little bit more about that. I mean, if we could lift the stigma, and so many people in our field are trying so hard to do that, we could have more people coming forward, getting care that they need and deserve.
Yeah.
It was really important that you mentioned that you can't heal in isolation. In the world of homelessness that we are very involved in right now, we're learning more that people on the street feel completely isolated. People just walk by, don't even stop and acknowledge that they're a human being. So unless we grapple with that, we're not going to solve this problem. I don't think. But you can help. So tell us more about that.
Well, I think it's exactly that. Is it's so hard to navigate our lives right now, right? With so much stuff going on, distress in the world. So I think the theater becomes a space where we have to look. And I've always been inspired by this quote by Kurosawa, the great filmmaker, where he said, the job of the artist is to look when no one else wants to look. Wow. And he talked about the idea of taking a stone, when you take a stone out of the dirt and you open it up and there's like dirt and worms and insects and we just want to put the stone back. But he said the job of the artist is to lift the stone and look at it. So I think that's what we do, and if we can do that in a way that is non-judgmental. I mean, that's what's, right. It's so important in the theater. There's another great quote of André Gide, which I always tell actors, which is, "Please don't understand me too quickly." I mean, that's a kind of odd translation of a French sentence. But, I think it's a lesson for us. We just make judgments, and an actor's job is to not understand too quickly. What are all the causes? They're related. They're in family. They're multi-layered. And I think if we can develop that sense of a more expansive, capacious understanding, we won't be able to walk away. We won't be able to turn it off. We'll develop our muscles for compassion.
That's a beautiful insight. We're in the social media era where everyone looks at something for a couple seconds here or a quick tweet there, and that's it. We don't stop and think long and hard about the complexities and nuances that you're trying to emphasize in your work. So thank you so much for raising that. So let's move on to the current musical playing at A.R.T.
Yes.
Nightside Songs. I know how excited you are about this. And this is a show, if you haven't heard, about a woman diagnosed with cancer and what she goes through. This is a musical as well, and we're very, very excited that the musical creators, Daniel and Patrick Lazar, are with us today, right here in the front row. Round of applause for them. And Daniel and Patrick are old friends of ours because they came to the school last fall to join us in an afternoon of communal singing. And in fact, Nightside Songs encourages the audience to participate in song, so celebrates the whole effort of communal singing. So we're going to have a little clip of when Daniel and Patrick came here last fall and led a number of us in that whole exercise. So let's play that clip.
Communal singing is truly physically healing, and Bobby McFerrin, who's sort of the king of group singing in my eyes, and communal singing and audience participation, he talks about that. I'll physically be feeling sick off stage, and then I'll come on and we'll all sing together and I'll feel well after that performance. So I think if any of us have sung in choirs or in church or wherever, I think we've all tasted that a little bit.
I won't know what to say, but I will check in on you every day. Your turn. I won't know what to say, but I will check in on you every day. One more time. I won't know what to say, but I will check in on you every day.
This was so magical. Thank you so much. So beautiful.
Thank you for your participation.
Thank you all so much. This is such a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you, Chance School. See Nightside Songs.
So as Daniel noted in that clip, communal singing lifts us up, right? It promotes healing. It promotes health in the broadest sense. It promotes emotional well-being. So you let out my secret. I love singing. I've benefited from it my whole life in terms of emotional well-being. Brings people together. So Diane, tell us more about Nightside Songs now. How is it going? When did it start? What are your plans for the future with this show?
So I'm so excited to talk about the show. It's something that's happening right now at our theater here in Boston. So this show was commissioned by the A.R.T. because we have known Daniel and Patrick for years, and they did a brilliant show for us called We Live in Cairo about the Egyptian uprising. And what we love in theater is to have a long-term relationship with artists. So we were able to turn to Daniel and Patrick and say, what do you want to do next? And they came with this idea. And what I love about this project, the mission of the A.R.T. is to expand the boundaries of theater, which I love as a mission, right? Because it makes us ask with every project, what is the purpose of theater? What is the role of theater? And I feel Nightside Songs really lives our mission because the show is asking, what is the form of theater that should match this content? So this show is not at our big auditorium at the Loeb. It's off-site. It's currently playing at the Masonic Temple in Porter Square, and then it's going to move to Hibernian Hall in Roxbury next week. And it's done in a circle for an intimate scale audience because size matters. So it's about 150 people. You sit in a circle. And there is a narrative. There is a story of a woman that you follow and her journey with breast cancer. But the audience is part of the event. And the audience is, in the most gentle way, invited to sing along. And I just say that because I know some people run screaming from audience participation. But it's done in such an exquisitely graceful way where you are invited to sing And I think when you do it, you start to feel better, and you start to feel connected. And it's actually, I've experienced it as an audience member, it's a way to channel what you're feeling. So you're not just sitting and clenching up or feeling something inside, you actually can put it into the singing, right? And this is another example of a show. Daniel and Patrick worked with Susan Block, who's from Harvard Medical School and a national leader in palliative care. Right. And they did research, speaking with nurses, doctors, caregivers, patients. And I think that's another important thing for people to know about theater and how we work and how science is more akin to theater than we think. That, I think of theater as a form of research. It's a form of public history when a play is created and given to the world. So this was a play that had that process here at Harvard, which only A.R.T. can do as the professional theater on this incredible research campus. And so this is the world premiere, and it was shown in New York at the Under the Radar Festival, went to the Philadelphia Theater Company, and is now finally coming home to A.R.T. for this premiere. So thrilled that we're doing it, and I just hope people come out for it. So I will do my shameless plug, like the Lazar brothers did in that clip. In fact, I had a colleague write me an email yesterday, and she actually said, Diane, I've lost a lot of people to cancer, and I tried to give away my tickets, and no one would take them. And then she wrote, and I'm so glad that happened. And then she wrote me, she said, I didn't want to post this on social media, I wanted to write you long form. And she just wrote, I laughed, I cried, I sang, and I healed. Because I felt like those actors were reflecting everything that I've been through. And it created an experience that only the theater can do in a community setting. And you're really in community with strangers, which we do all the way, by the way. We walk on streets, we see strangers, and we go in apartment buildings and enter office buildings, this big building, get in an elevator. I actually walked in the elevator here, and I was so interested. I wanted to know all the students, because they were all getting off at different floors, and we don't have opportunities to connect, right? So the theater becomes a place in its own way to connect with people we would never meet before. And this show gives that forum. And I think with a subject matter like this, even though you're not knowing someone's story, the production leaves the lights on, which is another deliberate intention. So you're sitting in that circle and you're following a narrative, but then you're looking across and you see another audience member. And without any words, you can kind of know what other people have been through. And so there's something affirming about that. I think there's something so important to go back to that Alanis quote of "We don't heal alone." Is, it's very affirming to know we're not alone in the struggles we go through. And so the theater can provide that form, even just in the community of audience building.
Beautiful, beautiful, Diane. No one can speak like you. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and this show in particular, since it has a health theme, medical theme, I think all of us in public health will be particularly fascinated to go see that. So thank you so much. So you and your colleagues at A.R.T. have a very exciting future because you're going to move to a new venue soon.
We are.
And so tell us about that. Tell us your future plans. How can we in public health work with you to make that transition one that's going to benefit joining our fields even more closely together?
Yes, well, thank you for asking about that. So in 2026, the fall, which is now like a blink of an eye away, I have to pinch myself, we will be opening a new center at Harvard University, the first ever Center for Creativity and Performance, the Goel Center, the David and Stacy Goel Center for Performance and Creativity and Performance. So this to me is a milestone for Harvard University. There's been so much innovation happening on this campus, but to think about a center where the A.R.T. will have its new home, right? So we will be I think of us as the animating heartbeat of this building, but it will be an interdisciplinary gathering point for people across the university to come and forge collaboration, partnerships, research projects around what creativity, imagination, what it means to be human, in my opinion. That's kind of the umbrella. What does it mean to be human, especially in this digital age, which is here and not going away, and you know, I'm all for that, right? AI does extraordinary things. But how can we work with the scientific community, work with the medical community, work with the business community, the engineering community, around all these issues that are going to face us, ethical issues, issues of how technology is used, brought to market, as part of what we do in our new center. So what does that mean? I mean, my dream, Howard, is that Chan School and A.R.T. can be in deep partnership. We can have conversations like this. We can commission new work. I know you're very dedicated to the issue of homelessness, and we've talked about that over the years. And, you know, what are ways in which we can pick topics that need a spotlight, that need attention? How can we bring artists to the table, bring scientists and experts in public health, practitioners to the table, and say, what can we do? How can we serve what you've devoted your life to, in a way, to bring more attention, to bring more education, to bring more communication? I mean, we are communicators. That's what we do. So I'm hoping that public health will be centered in our building, not only in programming, but I've told you my dream of the Sing-Along Sunday that we have. Sing-Along Sundays that everybody knows, if they want to feel a little better, they can come out to our new building on a Sunday night and sing around a piano in our lobby.
Daniel and Patrick will be there.
I know they will. They will. And you know, also other things like our dear colleague who you introduced me to, Joe Allen, head of the Healthy Buildings Initiative here. He's worked with us intensively to make sure the building has optimal health, not only in you know, air quality. We will be regenerative practice in our building. Biophilic furniture, which has been proven to increase creativity, but to be a model of a kind of holistic approach to art, creativity, humanity.
Diane, we're so excited for you. We're so excited for us. And the vision you're painting to bring us even more closely together is so inspiring. What a fabulous conversation, right? Big round of applause for Diane Paulus. So I'm sure you're going to want to watch this over and over again, right? I will. Get down all those quotes. So if you want to see this again, please go to the Harvard Chan YouTube page. Thank you so much for the people in the studio here. You've been a tremendous audience, if I can say. We will be heading now downstairs for a luncheon Q&A with Diane to continue the conversation. So thank you so much and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.